Hello there, critics, non-critics, and friends. Welcome to the Film Optix podcast, where we take a glance into blockbusters, indie films, and everything in between. I'm your host, Christian, and I'm joined by my friend, Devin. And today we are here to give our thoughts and break down episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi Parts 4 through 6. Of course, this does include the season finale, which is episode 6. For those who do not know, the series is done. We don't have to hear about whiny little Star Wars fans saying, "Oh, it breaks canon." Very happy about that. What about you, Devin?
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars fans are always insufferable. But I watched a dialect speech coach expert breaking down Ewan's hello there versus Alec Guinness's hello there, and he says Ewan's is better because of the emphasis on the there. Hello there. Yeah,
Alex is just hello there, and then Ewan's hello there.
Yeah, there's just better emphasis.
There definitely is, and it's just so funny how even back then during the original Star Wars, we never really had. There wasn't any memes or anything, but it's Ewan McGregor made that phrase so popular, without even trying, and it just stuck. And it's it always just goes back to Revenge of the Sith. I'm telling you, Revenge of the Sith is the most quotable Star Wars movie out there. I really think it is. I'm not even lying. This isn't me pulling anyone's finger or anything, but I don't know if it's just me, but I really feel like it's the most quotable movie.
I feel like we should do a rewatch and write down how many of the quotes in the movie.
Yeah, I think so. And it's also the most memeable, we've kind of talked about before. But before we get into today's excitement by talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi Parts 4 through 6, before we begin today's episode, you can listen to our podcast on podcast platforms around the internet. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. And if you are a new or seasoned listener to the show, we would love to hear from you guys. Follow us on Instagram and follow us on Twitter at Film Optix. That is Optix with an X. Or you can email us at filmoptix@gmail.com for any movie-related questions. Devin, how is your week?
It's almost over, thankfully.
We're almost there, buddy. So close. How many more episodes of Barry are there?
The season 3 is over.
Oh, it's over. Okay.
The finale was insane, unbelievable.
I got to catch up on that. I'm working on a little project on my own, so I got to start watching some. I don't want to tell you guys yet, but it's going to be a lot of fun. I've been struggling whether to rewatch Stranger Things season 4, episodes 1 through 7. I kind of want to to prepare myself for the carnage that is to come. So
one more week.
I know. So are you going to do a rewatch, Devin? Or are you just going to?
I'm just going in. I'm ready.
Wow. No, Dev.
It's only been a few weeks.
That is true. So it's do I rewatch episodes 1 through 7, or do I wait until the season finale and then rewatch everything all the way through?
That would take way too long. I don't have patience for that. Everyone's talking about the new stuff.
I mean, yeah, but it's, we review so much stuff. I just want to watch something for leisure, once in my life, please. But as I digress, we're about to be getting into our Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 4 through 6. So the way we'll break it down, we'll pretty much just go through each part, starting, of course, with Part 4, talk about that for a little bit, move on to Part 5, and then Part 6. So, Devin, are you ready to jump in to this grand review that we have? Because we put it off, but also because Disney doesn't know how to separate Star Wars and Marvel content. So that's why we're doing it this way.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this introduction to Obi-Wan Kenobi Parts 4 through 6.
It's been 10 years.
The fight is done.
We lost.
Leave us alone, Ben.
When the time comes, he must be trained.
Like you trained his father.
It's my responsibility.
Obi-Wan, I've loved you always.
There's a thing that swallows you. It holds you together while it's tearing you apart. It's terrifying.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back. You just heard a little snippet from the trailer of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Again, this entire series is directed by Deborah Chow and stars Hayden Christensen, Rupert Friend, and Ewan McGregor himself. So the way we're going to break this down, just to let everyone know, since part 4 and 5 and 6 are pretty much all out, we're just going to be diving straight into spoilers. We can give small little initial reactions here and there, but this is, all the chains are taken off. Like we do not have to worry about spoiling anything. So I'm just going to give you guys one more spoiler warning just in case. So, that is your spoiler warning. Just to let you guys know.
Spoiler alert, Luke lives. Big shocker.
Luke lives, Leia lives, Vader lives, Obi-Wan lives, the entire cast lives.
Everybody lives.
It's amazing.
It's a prequel.
Oh my gosh, it's a prequel. What? Crazy stuff. So as I said, we're about to get into our part 4 review. Unfortunately, they don't really have episode titles instead of
it's been like this for the whole season, like no titles, and also the descriptions have been very vague, like on Disney Plus and on like other places too. Yeah,
which makes me think that this entire series could have just been a movie.
Yeah, it probably should have been. I think it was supposed to be at one point.
Yeah, I think so too. But it's like, I mean, if you're not even going to bother naming each episode, then like it might as well just be a movie.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't planned to be episodic, like from the very beginning.
No, not at all. So let's start here with part 4, which is I think it's probably the weakest point of the entire story. This is when
things get really goofy in this episode.
Yeah, so this is the episode right after Obi-Wan first faces.
Yeah, their first battle, which was like a real high point. Everyone was freaking out after that episode.
Yeah. So this is like the aftermath of that. Everything with Obi-Wan, and there's like this really big rescue plan on Jabim, I believe the name of the planet is. And it's, I don't know. What were your thoughts about this episode?
Yeah, this episode was definitely the lowest point for me. Definitely kind of worried me as to where they were going. Thankfully, they did pick it up for the last 2 episodes, but this one, it definitely felt just unnecessary all around. Like it's just a classic Star Wars rescue mission, but the way they did it, it felt so silly. Obviously, Star Wars is very silly, like to its core, but this felt like even more so.
Right, because the rescue plan was to get Leia back, because after episode 3, that's when Vader came to...
Yeah, because Reva got into the underground Jedi tunnel and snatched up Leia.
Right. Now, okay, yeah. So I'm looking at my notes. I'm like, wait, what? Like, it hasn't been that long, but at the same time. But yeah, so definitely this episode was, the entire season has been this huge like Leia rescue mission. But I would say towards the end of this episode was probably the best part, especially the scene between Leia and Reva, where, Reva is interrogating a 10-year-old child, which felt...
We can talk more about Reva in general, but just the writing for this character is just so off. It's really astonishing how much they just messed it all up. Like she has no direction as a character. She's just wandering aimlessly throughout the whole season.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, I was listening to Nerd Soup's review of episode 6, and they were mentioning that, it might be better on a rewatch now that we know everything that is happening, And like we said, it's better as like a 6-hour movie thing. But yeah, for episode 4, it's very
That's something I wanted to bring up, and then we can talk about it when we get into episode 5 when we find out her real intentions. But yeah, I feel like that could have been done much better. But let's just get into episode 5, because I feel like episode 4 there's not much to really dive into. I mean,
before we do for a sec, I do want to say it was a power move that Reva took Lola and put a tracking device, because
that was cheeky.
Vader was about, like, that was I will say about episode 4 before we move on, I will say that was like the most like anger that we've seen from Vader since, like, his voice was like, he raised his voice. It's like, why are you yelling at me? He's like, I'm not yelling at you, I'm raising my voice. Like, he was like, you failed me for the last time. I was like, this is it, because the Inquisitors are not around once A New Hope starts. They're all dead. And if you've watched Star Wars Rebels, it gets more into that. But it's like, I was like, ooh, Vader's gonna, like, let's go kind of thing. So that was a highlight.
And then their escape where Leia and Obi-Wan are under the same jacket, just waddling away. What are we doing?
That man has 4 legs. What's going on?
Nobody's paying attention. Everybody's walking in different directions on the ship. Just don't know where they're going.
Stormtroopers can't even shoot straight, so I don't expect them to be that perceptive when it comes to a lot of things. I don't expect their perception, to be heightened. So between that scene with Vader and Reva, and then of course Reva kind of using the nice little power move of putting the tracker device on Lola. So I thought that was pretty cool. But other than that, there really isn't too much. There really isn't too much to this entire episode. So unfortunately for episode 4, aka part 4, the interrogation scene was pretty cool, and then the whole rescuing Leia was all right, but surviving Vader's wrath was kind of a thing as well. But that was more of just Vader force choking Reva and just kind of having his way. And so yeah, that pretty much, for episode 4, it's like you said, there's not too much, but I kind of just wanted
bit of a dud.
Yeah, it does push the story forward, but it's just not a very exciting episode. And not every single episode needs to be this grand, like epic, like tale, like, oh my gosh, can you believe what happened? Like sometimes episodes are just duds, whether, they move the story along or not. Thank God, at least it wasn't filler. But yeah, so let's move on to episode 5, because that is when people started to, I guess you could say, pay attention again. So what are your thoughts on that?
On people like tuning back in after episode 4?
Oh, I was sorry. I meant like, what are your thoughts after for part 5?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a step up. Definitely got back on track after episode 4. It's just so cool seeing Vader just take down a whole ship with the Force just because he can.
We barely see that, like, ever. Like, we've seen it. I think the first time we've ever seen it was in the Force Unleashed game. It's like Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, where you play as Vader's other, like, secret apprentice, Starkiller. But I think that was, like, the first time we saw, during that video game for the Force Unleashed, is when we saw Vader like pull an entire like Star Destroyer or whatever, like out of the sky. And then his apprentice does it later on, which is really, really awesome. But I really love how Hayden Christensen just knowing that he's in the suit really makes me happy. Like, it really is it's the Empire kind of cornering of these refugees, all these Force sensitive children. And like this huge sabotage and the siege happens, and it's like
it was cool seeing Obi-Wan and Darth Vader just having like a chess match back and forth, because they know each other so well. At the end of the day, Obi-Wan comes out on top because he just outsmarts Anakin. Also, we find out Reva's true intentions in this episode, and that's what I was talking about earlier. I feel like if we knew from the beginning like these so-called twists about Reva, that she would have been a much better character. They didn't have to be saved for twists at the end. Like, everybody knew she was one of the younglings from the very beginning. We saw that scene. That was her. You could just see. You didn't have to save that for episode 5.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's just like, I mean, she was the only like minority, like youngling in that entire group. Besides their the master who was protecting them.
Yeah.
And then it's like, she's really the only, I mean, she's not the only minority in the show, because you have Ice Cube's son, who is also in this show. He plays an important role, for sure.
Broken.
Oh, Roken. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, Roken. Sorry, I'm like hearing things.
Because we also find out that she is kind of infiltrating the Empire just to try to take a shot at Darth Vader, which is cool in itself. It's a cool concept. But I feel like if we knew that from the beginning, it would have been so much more interesting. Like, we could have gotten on her character's side. We could have known her intentions, and it would have been like, wow, this is a really cool character because she's infiltrating the Empire. 1, that's amazing. And 2, she's trying to take out Darth Vader. Like, that's always interesting. But yeah, I feel like if they had that from the beginning, it would have been a lot better.
Yeah. And I mean, it's as if with Reva, like, it would have been fine to let us, the audience, know, so long as like nobody else, in the show knew what was going on. I think that would have been fine. But I think the main takeaway from, or like the biggest thing, is that, everyone finally wanted to see Hayden Christensen as Anakin again. I totally get it. This is, it was a beautiful type of, you see Vader, like this is Anakin only being Darth Vader after 10 years. So, he's not like peak Vader yet. And we'll definitely get into that once we hit the finale for part 6. But you can definitely see that, he's still reminiscing on who he once was. And, this obsession with finding Obi-Wan throughout this entire series has been like his main goal. But I did feel like it was a very beautiful starting off with, the flashback, and that cutting back and forth to the flashback throughout the entire episode for part 5. I thought it was very, very, I thought it was just very powerful stuff.
Yeah, just diving into their relationship more. It shouldn't have taken all the way to episode 5 to do it as much as they did, but it's good that they did it.
I mean, I understand. I see what you're saying, but I guess my thing would be is that like we really see their relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin flesh out, not through the prequels, but through Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the TV show. But I understand that not everyone watches that because it's 7 seasons, and there's a lot of filler episodes that really definitely adds to the universe. But there is a list out there, Devin. Trims all the fat, gives you all the important
I'm
episodes.
aware. I tried. I just couldn't get into it.
You did try. I think you might have a better time with the Rebels. Because I'm going through Rebels right now. Actually, for the first time, I've never watched it all the way through. I've only seen a few episodes here and there. I'm actually on the final season. I kind of like put it to the wayside for now, but just because we had a few other things, going on. But yeah, I mean, I understand that not everyone can watch Clone Wars, but I think it was really nice to see Hayden Christensen back as just Anakin Skywalker, even though he's looking a little rough there for a bit, Yeah,
they didn't do any de-aging, which was definitely an interesting choice because you could definitely see their ages.
I think that was probably for the best because it's like, I mean, I think it just would have looked weird. I mean, we've already seen it with Luke Skywalker a few times, and that just looks weird to me. It really just does. Like, if you're going to keep putting Luke in all of these, in all of like these cameo appearances, you need to cast a different actor. I'm sorry. Like, it's something you just have to do. Like, I mean, I understand it is Mark Hamill, but like, if you're going to keep using these legacy characters, I mean, Sebastian Stan is right there. So that's all I'm going to say.
Been saying it for years.
Yeah. And
we get Sebastian Stan as young Luke Skywalker. We get Millie Bobby Brown as young Leia. We got some options.
So I know that everyone wants Millie as Leia. I would love to see Millie as Padme.
Although, never mind. That age difference is way too much for those two.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, between those two for sure. I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, let's say, look at like a young Millie Bobby Brown and look at a young Natalie Portman. They're like, they could be sisters. It's crazy. It's insane. I absolutely love it. But yeah, part 5. Just getting back here on the subject at hand.
I also wanted to give a shout out to Tala as a character. I thought she was a very interesting character throughout these few episodes that she was in. Kind of just like a better version of what Reva should have been, like the infiltrator for the Empire. Working, obviously she's different because she's working for the Jedis, but just definitely an interesting character that probably could have had a bit more screen time, but she went out, sacrificed herself for the greater good, and I think that's something that Leia remembered moving forward.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, for her character, I mean, I'm just saying, Game of Thrones character actors, they're coming back. The Last of Us, we got Pedro Pascal, the Viper himself, Martell. Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, Devin, at least watch that episode, because that was like my introduction to Pedro Pascal. Like, I think that was a lot of people's introductions to Pedro. And the woman who dies in part 5, she is also in Game of Thrones. And then we have Bella Ramsey, who's going to be playing Ellie in The Last of Us. And we also had the Russian guy from Stranger Things 4, who Hopper was with. I forgot the Russian guy's name, but he is the faceless man of the House of Black and White from Game of Thrones. So they're everywhere. They're making a comeback. You know, I'm very excited.
I'll make the connection for you. Let's just hope the Game of Thrones guys Star Wars movie never comes out.
I don't think it ever will. I think they actually dropped that project altogether. I was excited for them to do a Star Wars like movie because of the success of Game of Thrones. And then they wanted to get to it so fast. And then they just completely just rushed everything from, arguably you can say, from season 7 to season 8. And I love it out. Anytime you just say season 8 to somebody, they know exactly what TV show you're talking about, which is really great. But as I digress, yes, part 5 brought us a lot of great moments.
We get the Reva Darth Vader fight, which obviously ends as you'd expect, but she gets stabbed in the stomach. Yeah, she gets stabbed in the stomach and survives easily. It made sense for the Grand Inquisitor because, as he mentioned on the talk show he went to, Rupert Friend, he has 2 stomachs. That race of creatures has 2 stomachs, so that makes sense while he lived. But then she gets like destroyed, and then she's just kind of moving on like nothing happened.
And I love it how everyone was like, oh my gosh, how does Reverend know who Vader is? And it's like, I mean, I believe it was episode 5 where they doubled down and said that, you know, Vader, it's, you know, Anakin is gone. Vader has killed Anakin like 5 times over.
Yeah, he watched Anakin. She watched Anakin mow down her friends. Of course, she's gonna make that connection.
You know, like, I literally thought about that. Everyone's like, oh, well, how does Reva know? I'm like, well, there could be a lot of different ways. He could have just shown a more vulnerable side at the time, but we didn't really know how close the relationship was. But it's like, well, I mean, I thought back to the very first scene. I'm like, well, I mean, she could have just been at the temple when Order 66 was happening, and she knew him from then. And that's exactly what happened. And we find that out this episode. But it's like, again, like, it's just, they were like, oh, like, what is it?
It just feels like the Inquisitor storyline is so forced in this season. Like, they could have had their own series or just put somewhere else, but it just feels so forced to put the Inquisitors in here. Even just seeing them in Fallen Order, how intimidating they are throughout that game. And they're just so silly in this series. Like, there's nothing scary about them.
They're pretty intimidating in Star Wars Rebels as well.
They're supposed to be. I mean, but then in this one, they're just kind of like cartoonish. It just doesn't work. It just feels like they just forced them in this series and kind of rushed their story.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a few Inquisitors, and it's like, I mean, it's all about Reva, so I don't know. It's, It's okay. I feel like heavy spoilers kind of said it best. That like there is a story to tell here, but it is entirely it's way too simplistic. Like just in general, like it's too simple of a story. And I think I remembered reading an article about Kathleen Kennedy actually changing the tone of the show, because apparently the tone of Obi-Wan Kenobi was supposed to be a lot darker, which I think should have happened, because this is not supposed to be a happy tale. Even though I think, once we get to part 6 here in a second, I think it's done a great job of wrapping things up. But I mean, this is not supposed to be like this. Oh, it almost seems as if it's like a happy-go-lucky like rescue mission. Like, oh my gosh, Leia got kidnapped. Now we're gonna go rescue her. But it does build that relationship between Obi-Wan and Leia, and that is something I do appreciate. But at the same time, there's only so much you can do with this entire story, because we know Leia lives. We know Luke's
there's no stakes.
There's no stakes. Like Luke's uncle lives. Luke lives. Like anytime that third sister. Well, I'm sorry. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, anytime any main character, that legacy character that we knew was in danger, we knew they were either just going to be badly injured and then they're going to bounce right back, because that's not how they die.
That part was so annoying in the finale. Oh my God.
That was in the back of my head. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about part 5 before we move on to part 6?
I think we covered most of it.
Yeah, I mean it's trouble ahead. The refugees.
The Grand Inquisitor's back.
Yeah. So let's definitely let's dive into part 6 here, which is the finale, so to speak. Apparently we might be getting a season 2, but we're not entirely sure. I think Kathleen Kennedy said if there's more of a story to tell, but I'm like, well, this is this story happens 10 years after Revenge of the Sith. So another 10 years, pretty much that's the start of A New Hope. And it's I feel like they'd be really pushing it, if they did another season, to kind of, they would have to dance around a lot of stuff, because it's the number one issue with Star Wars has always been that, the beginning of the story is the middle of the story. And then you have to build everything else around it to make sure that, obviously Darth Vader being the main character of all of Star Wars, arguably, I mean, it really is all about Anakin. I mean, Luke is there, but it's all these events happen, 4, 5, and 6 because of Order 66, everything that happened during the Clone Wars. But I mean, that's always been the issue of Star Wars, is that, you start in the middle and then you have to build your way around, and we can't change too much. Obviously when Kenobi got dragged through the fire in episode 3, we knew he was going to be badly burned, or, but he came out okay, because we know he doesn't die until A New Hope. So it is what it is. But part 6,
Taika will save us. I'm confident.
I'm it's just always just been as much as I love Star Wars, I'm tired of legacy characters. I need new content with new characters.
That's why The Force Awakens was so exciting.
It's beautiful. And if
and then
me,
they just botch it going forward after that, with Finn especially. It's just, I mean, I love The Last Jedi, and they argue that, A Force Awakens is too much like A New Hope. Arguably, I think it's better than A New Hope. I 100% stand by that. But I mean, I understand, the importance that A New Hope brings, but it's a better movie. It just is, but that's just my opinion. I don't have nostalgia glasses for 4 through 6. I mean, I've watched them numerous times. I mean, I like them. I mean, I love Empire Strikes Back, but I don't have the big nostalgia glasses for 4, 5, and 6 that I probably do for the prequels, but everyone has nostalgia glasses for something. But yeah, I don't know. The entire time of me watching part 6, the finale, I was just thinking, well, nobody is going to die. Reva might die, but she didn't.
And it's like no one really died. I mean, besides those poor people.
I want to talk about what Reva's like. What is, I don't know. Nobody understands what her motives are. Like, what is she doing? Like, she feels betrayed by Vader because Vader literally stabs her in the stomach. Okay, so then she's mad at Obi-Wan. So she was expecting Obi-Wan to stay and fight Vader. That's what she was expecting, apparently.
Yeah, so it's like she was mad that Obi-Wan didn't. Well, I mean, there's always been like this really weird distrust in the Jedi, which actually kind of goes back to part of. I mean, if you watch the Clone Wars, because everything with Ahsoka happens there. With Ahsoka gets framed by the Jedi Council, and that's kind of where Anakin's distrust starts with the Jedi, and then moving forward, everything else that happens with Ahsoka leaving, and then obviously, Anakin going to the dark side. But I can kind of understand why Reva was upset because, they did need help, but there was no Jedis there to help them.
So then her plan is to go after some strange child. It just doesn't add up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It was there are a few inconsistencies like with the writing just of the show, not like of Star Wars altogether. But I can understand her trying to bait Obi-Wan to get to Vader, but then she brings the children into it, and I guess it was kind of confusing. Like, I understand that she was mad and no one was there to help them. She somehow survived that stomach lightsaber stab that Vader gave her during execute Order 66. But I see what you mean. I don't know why she was. I mean, maybe she was like, well, if I can't get Obi-Wan, I can get one of his children. But
why is she that angry at Obi-Wan?
I don't know. I mean, it's like, does she really even know Obi-Wan?
Was he supposed to save her from Order 66?
I mean, I think that's what they were trying to push. Like that's where like her main anger came from, was from the Jedi.
There's just no direct connection.
There's no direct connection to Obi-Wan, but I think it's just more of a direct connection to the Jedi. And since, they're kind of hunting all the Jedi, she's kind of like shifting all of her blame and all of her anger and hate onto Obi-Wan because, I mean, I'm sure that she's heard of Obi-Wan before, but knowing that, how renowned he is, I think she just shifts all the blame to him because he is one of the last surviving Jedi, I think. But that's just my thought process. But I do agree with you. It is a bit weird.
That scene where she's hunting Luke, it was just so dumb to watch. Like, okay, you're not going to touch Luke. And then they had to make it so that he was unconscious because
he's never seen a lightsaber.
Based on canon, he's never seen a lightsaber. Like, it's just all so like, oh, it's just so frustrating to watch. Yeah,
during that whole thing, I'm like, nobody here is going to die. And the final fight between Vader and Anakin, between Vader and Obi-Wan was amazing.
I mean, technically it is between Vader and Anakin.
Yeah,
because
I mean, Anakin's only been Vader for 10 years, and he's not the peak. He's a ruthless Vader, but he's not the ruthless like dictator Vader that we know from A New Hope onward, because he still is fixated on Obi-Wan. But of course, we get a little bit of
Palpatine.
Palpatine, my gosh. I'm looking at something on my side. So we get a glimpse of Palpatine in Part 6, and he kind of, I guess you could say, in a way, he's kind of mentoring Vader. Like, hey, if Anakin's really gone, then, you shouldn't have all of these, ties and.
Yeah, just move on, guy.
Yeah. So it really is amazing how they were able to, during the fight of Vader and Obi-Wan, which was phenomenal.
Yeah, let's dive more into the fights because it's obviously the high point of the series. The first one is great too.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. They're both great fights, but I hate that it kept cutting away at the ends. The second fight in Part 6.
Yeah. They kept going back and forth between the fight and Reva
I was like, no one's going to die with Reva. Like, we know everyone there is going to survive.
Yeah, that's why that just adds to the frustration.
Yeah, then that's the issue. I mean, like, you can make an episode or like a show with legacy characters, but it's like, it's his legacy characters out the wazoo. But it's so we all know they're going to be fine, and it is what it is. But yeah, so going back to the final fight between Obi-Wan and Vader.
When he knocks off that voice box, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Because it's like, like you're going to start hearing Anakin. And then it just like, it's mixing between back and forth, the James Earl Jones and Anakin. It's like getting messed up. It just sounds so cool.
And I will say Hayden Christensen, I never thought Hayden Christensen needed redeeming. I always loved his performance. As hokey and weird as it, as like it can be, I still love his performance. But in this series, once Obi-Wan kind of, knocks off like the voice box and like his breathing starts to have like that wheezing to it, because obviously this man is literally
and then
burned.
The mask comes half off. That's when it starts to become amazing. Like that's when it's next level. So
I love it how they did it in the show, because they actually first did it in Rebels.
Yeah, I saw that scene on Twitter.
Yeah, when Vader faces Ahsoka, which is like, it's fantastic. It's like, oh, like, Anakin's not here. He's like, oh, I can save you, Master. And like, it was, I love how they did it in the finale, because it like you said, it is the audio mix between, James Earl Jones's voice and Hayden Christensen's voice. And it's like Anakin is just like seeping out. It's like this.
You can hear that pain.
Oh, it comes from so many different places. I mean, like, he doesn't have his children. His wife is dead, died during childbirth. His apprentice, Ahsoka has left him. All of his distrust in the Jedi. It's like there's like Vader. There's a reason why Vader is like the best character in all of Star Wars. It's because he's the most layered. I mean, up to a point, because I mean now we have like Ahsoka and a few other characters. I actually put Obi-Wan up there as well. If you watch Clone Wars, you know what I'm talking about. But like those are like the main three like layered characters. And actually, I would throw Kylo Ren up there for sure. But it's like, there's a reason why Vader's the most like he's the best like movie villain of all time. Like it's you want to root for him, but you feel so bad for him at the same time. Like, you should be rooting against him, but it's like it's crazy. I absolutely love it. Like even during like Rogue One, where everyone's just cheering in the theater, like, yeah, Vader's here. It's like, yo, chill. Like what? He's like literally mauling down people, and people are cheering for him.
Still possibly the best Vader scene we've gotten. We might have to compare it to some of the scenes from this series, but it's hard to beat.
Because I mean, you hear the anger and the despair and just Anakin crying out to Obi-Wan, and
Obi-Wan crying back.
And it's like, I think you mentioned it during our, I think it was during one of the first part 1 or part 2 review. I think we actually did this together since it was, since they were released together. The way that Ewan McGregor can like act with his face, and the way he's like, I'm sorry, like for everything.
He's just the best.
It's all this way that, Obi-Wan's thinking that everything is his fault. He's like, I shouldn't have left him there, to die in Mustafar. I should have brought him with me. And it's like, entire time. He does
it again. He lets him live again.
He could have killed him.
He really could have just ended it right there.
He was right there. I'm like, bro, now's the time to pull the trigger. But yeah, it was, I was like, but it's so tragic and melancholy, and it just makes you, like, I don't know, the empathy is just there. Like the way that, Obi-Wan was looking at him, and then Vader's like, oh, he's like, you didn't, kill Anakin. He's like, I killed Anakin a long time ago. And he said, oh, then my friend truly is dead, or something of that nature. And then it's like, it's kind of like a closure for both of them to go in their own separate ways. Like Vader needs to forget Obi-Wan to become the Dark Lord that he's supposed to be in order to bring balance back to the Force. But obviously, unbeknownst to him, that kind of just happens. And then it's also closure for Obi-Wan, where it's like, okay, he's like, all this time I've been carrying around all this guilt. I've shut myself away from the Force. And now knowing that it's not my fault, it's time for me to move on. So it's like, I'm sorry. Biggest rant ever in the world. But like the season finale was just so good. It was
and I love
fantastic.
Whoever's idea it was to put these fights on like a dark, rocky planet. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's not a desert planet.
Thought did you think they were going to fight on Tatooine? Because I
would not have been surprised.
Because Disney loves Tatooine. It's crazy.
But it was just so cool seeing like all those rocks being used. Like I think Vader like leg sweeps Obi-Wan with some rocks one time, and then obviously piles up on him, and then Obi-Wan comes back and starts chucking him at Vader repeatedly. It was so cool. And just whenever it's dark and he's just, you can only really see the lightsabers like lighting up the area. It's just always so visually stunning.
Yeah. And I will say when they were clashing lightsabers after the piece of Vader's mask falls off, like you kind of see Vader's face, like forward. It's kind of like focused on like the blue lightsaber. And then when he like goes back, it's just all red. And he's like, Anakin's dead. He's like, I killed him. And it's like, it's just so tragic. But also, after moving on from the final fight, we actually get some really nice moments with not only with Luke, but with Leia. Hello there. And Obi-Wan meets Luke for the first time after talking with
Uncle Owen lets him after almost walking away.
Yeah, I mean, they both kind of just agree that, he just needs to be a boy right now. It's like, why does he need to train, at 10 years old? Like the Jedi Order at this point is dead. And it's like, obviously, if it was different, the Jedi aren't perfect either. So it's kind of, this really mixed bag of, something that Disney was trying to do, but, fans told them no. So that's how we got The Rise of Skywalker. But I really enjoy how, they both disagree that Luke needs to be a kid right now. And then it kind of cuts over to Leia after, Obi-Wan meets Luke, and, Leia's starting
what a surprisingly great addition to the series. Just young Leia. Like, I don't think anybody really saw that coming and then seeing it working out so well, but it really worked well.
Yeah, I really
Leia was his Grogu. Like it's that simple.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I thought she did a phenomenal job, and anyone who says otherwise, I feel like some people were kind of like iffy on it, but I'm like, dude, she's like 10 years old. Like, why are we so fixated on this? So it is what it is, but she starts to come into her own, and we have a nice little final moment between Leia and Obi-Wan where he kind of readdresses, like, I did know your parents and you have like the best qualities of both of them. And I just really love how because like like I said before, Padme it's rarely ever brought up by like anyone. It's like after she dies, it's like the entire universe, like galaxy, just like forgets about her. And then like that's it. Yeah. But not Obi-Wan. But I wanted to kind of just get into final thoughts about the entire series really quick before we get on out of here. We are a little bit pressed for time. I do apologize. But Devin, was there anything else you wanted to mention, final thoughts wise, before we give our ratings for the entire series and head on out?
Yeah, overall, the series was definitely entertaining. We got some great moments between Vader and Obi-Wan, which is what we wanted all along. They definitely tried some things that we mentioned that really didn't work out. Definitely a couple episodes that just didn't really work. Overall, pretty uneven. The finale was great, which is good that they landed well there. If we're kind of ranking the series, it's right in the middle for me. It's still not as good as Mandalorian, but it was better than Boba Fett.
Well, anything's better than Boba Fett.
It was okay at the end. They gave us the Mandalorian and Luke Skywalker content we needed to keep it interesting.
Everybody tuned in. I was like, Mandalorian's back. Like, let's go.
Yeah. But yeah, overall an uneven series. Definitely some ideas that didn't really work as far as implementation. But when you have Ewan McGregor starring in something, it's gonna be entertaining no matter what. Like, he's one of the best actors we have nowadays. It's so good to see him back in this role and enjoying it seemingly. So overall, I'd probably give this series. It's tough because it feels like the first few episodes took a little bit to get going, and then episode 4 was definitely a downer. 5 and 6 picked things back up. I'd probably go with like a 72 overall. Like, definitely good, but really had a few glaring holes that could have made it a lot better.
I got you. So yeah, for me, for episodes 1 and 2, I absolutely loved. I think episode 3 and what was it? Wait, no, 3 is when they fought. So it really was
the
just
first fight.
Yeah. So I actually really like over this entire episode season. I think episode 4 was probably just the one I didn't really like the most. I think that's just where the story kind of started to fall apart. I mean, not the best writing in the world. And like I said before, you know, you're dealing with legacy characters that we know that are going to survive. So it's kind of like you said, you know, there's no stakes. There's no like urgent. I never really felt like they were in any real danger. Because
and that's why Mandalorian just feels so fresh, because it's all so new.
Yeah, it is. It is what it is. I mean, they're talking about a season 2. I can take it or leave it at this point. Overall, for this entire series, or I guess mini series, I would give it like a solid 75. I did enjoy it, and I would like to go back and watch it as a movie experience, because that's what I did with WandaVision, and time just like blew through so fast. And I'm hoping that, you know, maybe someone out there will like get their hands on like on the digital copies of something. They'll pirate it and like make and cut it down to like a fan edited version or something. But I think knowing everything we know now, I think would make Obi-Wan Kenobi a better rewatch. I think it does have rewatchability. But, you know, it's always great to see Hayden Christensen back. You know, Anakin's my favorite character in Star Wars. Next to Ahsoka, it's like a 1A, 1B type situation. You know, Ewan McGregor, you know, he said he would love to come back and play this character again. And I mean, I would love to see him maybe more so as like a Force ghost. But yeah, I mean, overall, like I said, just a 75 out of 100 for me. Like it was good, not like the best. I agree with you there, Devin. Mandalorian still is like the number one. The number one Star Wars show. You know, we've had way more Marvel TV shows than Star Wars as of late, but I'm actually excited for casting Andor's show. I'm very excited for that. Excited for Taika's film and just
Ahsoka.
Yeah, Ahsoka for sure, like 100%. I can't get enough of Ahsoka, but you know, she is kind of like a legacy character now. I mean, she is newer to the series as a whole, but you know, people are now finally starting to know who she is, because it's like, if you didn't watch Clone Wars, you have no clue, or Rebels, obviously, but mainly if you didn't watch Clone Wars, you would not have even known of who she is. And it's like her and Anakin were like just, you know, two peas in a pod. It's crazy. But that concludes our coverage of Obi-Wan Kenobi Parts 4 through 6. It's been a wild ride. I'm kind of happy that it's over, you know, and until the next Star Wars adventure, I guess I could say there. But ladies and gentlemen, if you liked what you heard on today's episode, please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform of choice, and make sure to share an episode of the podcast with a friend, whether it be your mother, your brother, your lover, whoever it may be. Make sure to share an episode of the Film Optix podcast with a movie lover in need. And really quickly, coming up, we just finished our Miss Marvel episode 3 review, which is out now, and our Umbrella Academy season 3 spoiler-free review that is out now as well. We're going to be reviewing some Black Phone coming up this weekend. Finally getting some more some horror stuff. You know, it's been a very interesting year for horror so far. I think we've had some pretty good movies come from that genre. But definitely just follow us on Film Optix. Again, that's Optix with an X on Instagram and Twitter. Mainly Twitter is where we tweet, you know, what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be covering. Definitely. So I am working on a interesting project here for the channel, or not the channel, excuse me, the podcast, the show. So definitely keep your ears peeled for that one. But other than that, we'll see you guys later, and we hope you have a great day, and may the Force be with you. And that's a wrap for today. Thank you all for listening. And if you enjoy the show, leave us a 5-star rating review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram to stay in the know. That was Devin. My name is Christian, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.